Hey, parents, do you ever get frustrated with your kids? It's like, how can I get through to these crazy teenagers? Why are they so obsessed with the climate? They've been brainwashed with the whole global warming thing. How can I get their attention to show them how destructive these anti-emissions policies are? And now, well, it looks like New York City has given us a gift. You're against carbon emissions? Then you can't have any more of that delicious pizza. That's right. The city of New York trying to do away with carbon emissions through wood-fired, coal-fired ovens that make New York pizza really one of the last reasons why anyone would ever want to go back to New York City. So, is this an opportunity to actually bring sanity back to this argument? Let's bring in Marc Morano, who, well, he's the only sane one on this debate. He's the author of The Great Reset and founder of Climate Depot. All right, Marc, is this it? Do we have to explain it? All right, you like all that global warming stuff? You want to be with Greta Thunberg? Then no more pizza.
I mean, this is the New York Environmental Agency, which is coming out now and saying after 100 years of coal-fired, wood-fired tradition for New York pizzerias at some of their finest restaurants and small businesses, by the way, suddenly now they must change because of the emissions are causing all sorts of public health problems. And they want to force these small businesses to add scrubbers, to have irregular inspections, increase the cost of doing business. All of this ultimately, Larry, and you know this is what they do in every industry as they get more centralized power. It's going to hurt the smallest businesses. It's going to put them out of business. You're going to get more retail and corporate chains coming in, replacing the small mom and pop, because they won't be able to afford these new health and climate regulations. But this is par for the course in New York City. This is how they operate.
That's right. You're in New York and you're hungry for some pizza. Here you go. Here's your Pizza Hut. What?
Microwaves are much safer, I hear. They may not taste as good, but they're better for the climate and your health to breathe.
There you go. Exactly. Well, I mean, listen, honestly, I think that this could be one of those tipping point things. They always go too far, Marc. And I saw the pizzeria owners going nutso about this. You know, New York usually votes about 85% Democrat. So these are Democrats, I'm sure, who were saying enough is enough. Could Republicans, if they were smart, actually make an example out of this policy?
Yes, I mean they need to save wood-fired pizza, gas stoves, gas furnaces, gas-powered car, save eating meat. If Republicans just picked up that issue, not just in New York, but nationally,
that's right.
Believe you would have won Congress by a much larger margin if Kevin McCarthy had figured, let's make this a populist, simple issue, and let's talk about gas-powered cars and gas-powered lawnmowers and eating meat and affordable energy. That's what they've got. Now, I did some calculations on this based on a wood-burning stove, sort of like a fireplace that runs all day, 24 hours. I went back and found these stats. You'd have to burn a pizza stove almost 900 years to equal 1 year of John Kerry's private jet emissions of the carbon footprint. So here's the question. If they really, really cared when they're talking about gas stoves and meat, really wanted to do that, wouldn't the first order of business be to ban all private jet travel? Instead, you have Bill Gates bidding for the world's largest private jet transport, private jet companies making record profits. You know, since when? Since the lockdowns began in March of 2020. That's when really private jets went even beyond that, as celebrities and powerful people out to save the climate couldn't be held down by the lockdown.
Yeah, because they didn't want to wear a mask on commercial flights. All right, listen, Republicans, we're giving you gold here. We're the party of steak, pizzas, and muscle cars. That's Democrats are the party of tofu, matcha, and Metro Rail. Okay? Who's going to win that vote? I know who's going to win. All right, let's turn over to Sweden. Sweden, not known for their, right of center political policies, but they have turned a corner here on green energy. They're now looking to nuclear power. What's this all about? Have they decided that sustainable energy isn't very sustainable?
Yeah, well, first of all, Sweden, if you recall, for whatever reason, and I didn't see it coming, and I don't think anyone else did, they're the ones that bucked the COVID lockdown.
I do remember. Yes.
Globally. So this is a good sign. Their finance minister came out this week and said Sweden needs a, quote, stable energy system. So now they are rejecting their green energy agenda in Sweden, and they're trying to go full nuclear. Now, they haven't completely abandoned the green energy rhetoric. It's a small country. They're trying to push the nuclear agenda. But this is a huge break, and it's all since Russia invaded Ukraine, and we're seeing the similar things happen now in the UK. We're seeing France double down on their nuclear, but they're now realizing that virtue signaling to a green agenda might sound good 10 years ago when there's no real consequences because the targets are years later, like Arnold Schwarzenegger, a climate hero. Back in 2006, none of the pain that he passed affected Californians till long after he was out of office. Sweden's feeling it now. Europe is feeling it now. No more virtue signaling. And we're finding them rejecting more and more of these net zero mandates. Net zero goals are in trouble. The UN goals are in trouble in Europe.
Very interesting. And I do find it fascinating that this gentleman said we need a stable energy program, which does not mean windmills and solar panels. Thank you very much. Can you explain something to me though, Mark? If you really do worry about carbon emissions and that's your number one concern, I would think nuclear energy would be the perfect solution for you. Why is that not considered green?
It's not considered green because, well, the biggest reason it's not considered, there's the fear, first of all, obviously, of nuclear fallout, nuclear waste. And actually, it was Freakonomics in New York Times, the author said, if you're worried about global warming today, blame Jane Fonda, because it was her movie with Jack Lemmon, The China Syndrome, which demonized nuclear energy and ended it for much of the, certainly for the United States and other countries. But what's interesting about nuclear is because there's no real objection that they can make other than the fear factor, you literally have an energy source that could provide energy, and France is a leading example of this. But the problem is the green agenda really doesn't want plentiful, cheap energy for people because that leads to overconsumption and other environmental issues. And it leads to too much travel, it leads to too much excess. This is what they're trying to prevent. And that's why they have 15-minute cities. They want to box you in, lock you in, no cars, no freedom of movement, no private car ownership, limited energy, thermostat control. Then you'll be a good steward of the earth and a model citizen.
Nuclear power will give you too much freedom and too much happiness, and we can't have that. By the way, I don't want to see any of your comments about Chernobyl. Chernobyl was not a failure of nuclear power. It was a failure of communism and socialism. Real fast, Marc Morano, before we're gone, are you surprised that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is sort of catching a lot of attention, not just from Democrats and the loony left, where he pretty much dwells most of the time. There's even people on the conservative side of the aisle saying, hey, this Kennedy guy is making sense. He doesn't make sense, does he? Isn't he one of the environmental wackos?
Good question. All right, first of all, I interviewed RFK Jr. in 2014 New York City Climate March. He told me that the CEOs of Koch brothers and all these energy companies should be at The Hague with 3 square meals and a cot.
We've run the video on the show here, Mark. I know it very well.
And his campaign actually reached out to me, wanted the whole interview because they said it was causing them all these heartaches. Well, here's the thing. In 2020, RFK came out solidly against the lockdowns, against Anthony Fauci, against the vax mandates, against mask mandates. And I actually, in my book, The Great Reset, put all is forgiven for wanting to jail climate skeptics for taking his stand against the COVID tyranny. But here's the other thing. RFK Jr. is a smart man, and here's why a Trump voter could just as easily vote for RFK Jr. He came out about a month ago. And he was asked, I think I was on another show, and they asked him, what is your view now on climate? And he said, you won't hear me talk about climate in this campaign. I don't care. I'm not going to try to convince you about climate change. The climate issue has been hijacked by the United Nations and the World Economic Forum for totalitarian control of society.
Interesting. So he has...
That's progress,
He's
Larry.
turned a corner. All right, Marc Morano. I remain skeptical. Yeah, he doesn't want to talk about climate during the campaign. Just once he's in power, then you'll hear about it. Thanks, Mark. There's more to come on O'Connor Tonight.